What is going on, everyone? We're here. We're live for I don't usually do Wednesday afternoon streams, but we're doing one because it's a special occasion. We've got Matthew Marsden here with us today. Matthew, what's going on, man?
Hey, how you doing?
I am doing fantastic. I'm really happy to speak with you, and I know the audience is going to be happy to hear from you as well. But, you know, Matthew, you are a British actor who within the last year or so became an American citizen, which I really want to hear a lot about that. But definitely what I think has got you on a lot of people's radar, other than your work, obviously, has been you speaking out about Hollywood, about what's going on right now in the world, not just in the entertainment industry. So we're going to dig into a lot of that. But for those that maybe aren't familiar with you, could you introduce yourself?
Okay, my name's Matthew Marsden, and thank you so very much for having me on the show. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. And, you know, Matthew's been in movies ranging from Black Hawk Down, which is hard to believe that's 20 years ago now, to Rambo, Resident Evil Extinction, and you actually have a new movie that just came out in the past few days, Deadlock with Bruce Willis. So I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later. But first of all, Matthew, how did you get started in the industry?
Oh my goodness me! I think, yeah. So wow. I'll try and keep it as condensed as possible. So you know, I grew up in the UK, single parent. My mom was a single parent, raised in a working class environment. You know, but I used to love watching American TV shows. Loved them, Dukes of Hazzard. You know, Chips, all those kind of things. Just loved them. Loved American movies. Kind of fell in love with America from afar, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's funny, like I absolutely loved like Ghostbusters. I know that the new one's just come out, and one of the first things I did when I came to America was I went and got a Twinkie, right? Because it was such a big thing in Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
We don't have them in the UK. But anyway, so I had this crazy notion that I wanted to be an actor. And I mean, nobody around me had done that. But I had a dream, and I remember watching Rocky, and Rocky saying, you know, you can achieve anything if you work hard enough. So I had this kind of crazy idea of doing that. So I went and did all my exams for it, did an A level in theatre studies, then got into something called the National Youth Theatre, which is, you know, the premier youth theatre in the UK, which is kind of like a good indication of if you're going to become professional. I believe Daniel Craig's in it, Orlando Bloom was in it, a bunch of people that went through that. And then I went on to do a degree in performing arts, but didn't finish it because I started getting work. Got a job. My first audition I went on actually was a TV show called Emmerdale, which is like then was the third biggest show in the UK. Did that for like 4 months, came out, and then I had an audition for the biggest show in the UK, which was Coronation Street. Did that for a year, came out, had a single with Destiny's Child. Then I got a movie with Michael Caine. Yeah, I got a movie with Michael Caine.
That's that's so many crazy things that happen really quick there. So you're on the biggest show in the UK. They call it Corey, right? That's what I've seen people talking
Corey,
about it.
Yeah.
And then you have a single with Destiny's Child that blows up. And then you're in a movie with Michael Caine. So as a guy from the UK, that's a pretty wild couple years there.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, you know, that's why I do feel sorry sometimes for people that have like mega fame, because you're never really prepared for it. You don't really understand what it's like or going to be like to not be able to walk down the street, so my first episode on Coronation Street was the 3rd of March 1997, which is my birthday. And the next day I couldn't go. I was going down getting sandwiches from a local sandwich shop. Next day I couldn't do it. Couldn't go through the gates. You know, when I turned on the Christmas lights in my hometown, like thousands of people turned up, and you know, you're not ready for it, you know, because you think, for me anyway, I'm an actor. That's what I do. You know, that's my focus is on the role. It's not about being famous. It's not, you know, it's just, can I be really good at what I do? And then the fame that comes with it, you're never quite ready for, you know. So after that, you know, because I've been boxing with Richie Woodall, who was the WBC super middleweight champion, trained with him. And after I got I got the Michael Caine movie, I was auditioning for Star Wars. There was a round, because the first one, The Phantom Menace, hadn't come out, and they were doing a lot of testing, and trying to put, like what they did with the first one, where they were getting groups of people together and taking them to the.
I think I lost you there for a second, Matthew. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. There we go. I heard that.
Okay.
There we go.
My apologies. I'm on my phone and I had an incoming call, so I hope that doesn't happen again.
No worries. It's fine.
So, then I went to. So my name started getting bandied around in Hollywood circles because of going through this process of Star Wars. And then I got a phone call from a manager who said, "Hey, listen, I want to come over and see you." They came over and I met with a couple of managers and I was like, "Wow, this is kind of interesting." They're flying over to see me. And they said, "Well, we really want to take you on." And I said, "Oh, well, all right, well, I'll see you on Friday then." And they were like, "Oh, British actors always say that they never come." And I'm like, I've always wanted to come to America, but I didn't want to be a bum. I didn't want to come and just, not come with anything. So I got these movies, got these television shows and whatever, came over, signed with a management company in Los Angeles. And within I think it was like 2 months, I got Black Hawk Down. So that was, it's kind of crazy.
And that had to be, you talked about how your life had changed overnight. Black Hawk Down 20 years ago, it's still like an iconic movie.
Mm-hmm.
How impactful was that, not only on your career, but on your life in general?
Well, I mean, you're working with Ridley Scott, working with Jerry Bruckheimer, first Hollywood movies, just like mind-blowing, just to be doing that. And it was 5 months of work, pretty much. I was on the second day of shooting, which was the scene with me and you and with him making the coffee. And then the last scene, which I can tell you a funny story about how this came about, was when me and Eric Bana go back in and we got to blow the helicopter up, before we go on to meet up with the other guys. And I mean, so we went down and started training with the Army Rangers, and there was a real watershed moment for me because, we were training with them and I'm doing the actor thing, getting into character and finding out more about these guys, who they are, what makes them tick and all that. And I said, I asked one of the guys, young ranger, who's probably about 20, 22, 23 years old. And I said, "Why did you join?" Because in the UK, you pretty much join, I want to trade, a lot of people go into the REMI, which is the engineers or whatever it is, to get a trade on signals, learn about electronics and whatever. And he just looked at me and he said, "I joined for freedom." And I was just like,
I think I lost you again. I don't know if the call came in.
Can you hear me?
There you go. I got you now.
I have a problem because I put an alarm on so I wouldn't miss your show, and it keeps coming back on every 5 minutes.
I tell you what, if you want to pop out,
rid of that. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. If you want to pop out and take care of the alarm and pop back in, that'll be fine.
I cannot hear you.
Check.
I'll tell you what, let me log off. Let me get rid of this bloody thing and I'll come back, okay? I apologize about this. My bad.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good. There we go. And we do have a couple super chats that came in, and I will get to those too. And, if they're addressable to Matthew, we'll definitely get those and we'll talk about them. Well, the plan today is, Matthew is obviously a busy guy, got a lot going on. So we're going to have him for about an hour or so. If he can stay for an hour, we're going to talk to you guys a little bit. And then any of the other super chats that might not necessarily apply to him, I will stay by myself and knock out all after. Thanks again for being here. I think you guys are really going to like what Matthew has to say, because knowing my audience and the shared values that we have, I think you're definitely in for a treat when we start talking about some of the things he's been speaking about recently. And I see him right here. Can you hear me, Matthew?
Yeah. I'm so sorry about this. Normally I'll be in my office,
No
like I said, but it's a little bit chaotic.
This is not a professional show. We don't give a shit. It's all good to go, man. No worries.
Good, because I'm not very professional myself. So, so yeah, going back to that, this ranger said, I joined for freedom, and then I just looked at him. I said, "You'd die for me, wouldn't you?" It was just a penny dropping, that he joined for my freedom, and I'm not an American citizen, and it was just like this moment where I was like, everything just went, everything that I knew about America kind of lined up, in that moment. It was like all the planets aligned, and like I said, "You'd die for me, wouldn't you?" And he said, "Yes, sir." And I'm like, fuck it. This is the greatest country in the world. I love these guys. I'm going to learn everything I can about America. I'm going to do whatever I can for veterans and veterans affairs. And that was it. And that was and then at that point, I also said, I'm going to try and do, because there's something what happened in Black Hawk Down later, where a couple of the guys came out and they complained about America. And they were playing guys that died fighting for freedom. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to cater my career to do as many veteran roles as possible. So that will allow me to go and speak to them and talk to them, however ridiculous it is that some kind of like pussy actors going out there and talking to them. Because I mean, it's like, it's ridiculous. There's real heroes. And I'm like, I just pretend for a living, I just wanted to make it.
I do think though, like that by you doing what you're doing and things like that, by people telling these stories from, real life stories, obviously they get dramatized, things get changed a little bit, but I do think it's really important because we talk about this a lot. I'm a part of Geeks and Gamers, which we talk about entertainment. We talk about pop culture. We talk about the effects that it has on the world right now. But, entertainment truly can change culture. And what you guys are doing by continuing to get those types of stories out there and talk about heroes, talk about people who have sacrificed everything for that one word, freedom. I think it's really important.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange thing, isn't it? I mean, look, I know what an influence TV and film had on me, and how it was a positive influence on me, how it was a positive thing about America. I had a very positive image of America in my mind. So it really makes me think about how the movies now, and certainly over the past like 10 years especially, have been pretty much anti-American. They've been very negative. And if you really think about it, apart from American Sniper, you're not gonna believe this. Like, someone just turned up with a blower. Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay, good.
The world is conspiring to keep us apart, Matthew. It doesn't fucking matter. We're gonna keep it going. We're gonna be all right.
Good grief. Okay. Yeah. So if you think about it, apart from American Sniper, there wasn't. We had a series of things like Stop Loss, which I got the audio. I got the script and I read through it. I'm like, I'm not doing this. Redacted, Rendition, Green Zone, all these anti-American movies. And there was a spate of them. Like, for the longest time, there was nothing positive about the American military and about America in movies. And I was really cognizant of that because I was getting all these scripts and certainly earlier on in my career, I used to get offered a lot of stuff, and I just turned it down. I'm not doing that. It went against my morals. But it's funny because you said about talking out. I'm a big believer in actors. We're meat puppets. Who gives a shit about what we say? But it really does get to the point where I'm so fed up of hearing these people spout bullshit and lies, and I'm like, I gotta say something. I mean, of course, it's going to result in me being ostracized, right? I don't give a shit, right? Because freedom is more important than that, and the truth is more important than that. So I'm like, okay, you're going to cancel me anyway. I don't care. My kids growing up in a free country, and the impact from that, the kind of ripple effect from America being free resonates all over the world. So it starts here. So am I going to sit here and complain about those kind of things? I just can't do it when there are guys that are going out there sacrificing their life, sacrificing their limbs. It's not a big thing for an actor to speak up, apart from the fact that I hate actors talking. I don't
Yeah.
like actors. I mean, I get the First Amendment right to do it, but you know, the majority of the time, I'm like, shut the fuck up, please. Like, you know
Yes.
nothing of what you speak. You know, so yeah. So I mean, it's you know, those things. Doing movies that are impactful and actually mean something. I mean, the amount of guys that have come up to me, and it's so humbling when you hear guys that joined up because of Black Hawk Down, or you know, these real heroes that come up and they'll say, "Oh, thank you," and I'm like, "Thank me." Like, you know, I get paid very well to do a job that I love. You guys, you know, for the most part, especially certainly the army guys, you know, that they have it rough, you know, and they
Yeah.
risk everything for my freedom. And I would say, you know, that you know, I can go and get an ice cream, or I can go and get a Slurpee under the freedom that they create for me, and I'm very grateful for that every day. You know, every day, really,
Yeah.
very grateful for that.
Yeah, and I think, like, to your point about actors speaking, I think in an ideal world, yeah, actors, athletes, everyone, they would do what their profession is. They would act, they would play sports, they would shut up and dribble. But in the world we're at now, where the mainstream media has shifted so many things, where it seems like the only people in Hollywood that are speaking, it's only from one certain frame. There's very much a leftist echo chamber. So that's all you hear,
Yeah.
and you get like bombarded with it. So at this point in time, I do think that, you know, people like yourself that I would consider a little more common sense than the vast majority of people in Hollywood. Not that that's a super high bar, but you know, we need more people like that standing up and speaking out. Because like we saw with Gina, right? With Gina Carano, when all that went down, it was inspiring to thousands and thousands of people that maybe they don't feel like they had as much to lose as she maybe did, or to finally see someone that they respected come out and tell it how it is, and not be afraid to simply not bend the knee to these people and apologize for a difference of opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you can't bend the knee, ever bend the knee. You just can't. I mean, because they will not stop. They will stamp on you and stamp on you and stamp on you. And the stuff that they throw at you is just so heinous. I just go, you know what? And I've been very careful not to curse. And I mean, not on this show, I haven't, but you know, like certainly on social media. But you get to the point where you're just like, hey, fuck you. You know what I mean? You don't get to order me. This is America. I'm an American. I have my First Amendment rights. And look, I mean, going back to these guys, the thing that drives me so crazy about it is that, number one, I mean, just corporately, right? Just on a business stance. And this is why I never, you know, again, like I said, I don't believe that actors really, you know, I mean, you know, we actually even speak other people's words for a living, right? I think that you're alienating 50% of your audience immediately when you speak out, right? So that as a businessman, you know, and as a capitalist, that's dumb, right? It's a very silly thing to do. But it seems like what they do is they don't care, and there's not a sensible approach about the way they talk, and a lot of the time they just spout things that are just not true. I mean, the Rittenhouse case thing was a classic example. They hadn't watched the court case. I watched pretty much all of it, not completely all of it, because, you know, I mean, it was on forever and forever. I mean, I was either listening to it or watching it, just because I felt like it was Americans' rights were on trial. And, you know, many people, look, it's okay when you live in Beverly Hills and you have an armed guard or you have armed security to talk about these things. You know, years ago, I did a commercial in South Africa, and it was the first time I'd ever seen a real gun, because the guy that I was working with lived in one of the most impoverished parts of South Africa, and he had a Beretta. It's the first time I saw a Beretta, and it was, you know, he goes, "Hey, can you get something out of my bag for me?" Blah blah blah. And I reached in there, and there was a gun. You know, and from England, you don't have guns, for the most part. And I was like, "Holy crap!" He goes, "Listen, man, when I'm walking to the bus stop in the morning to get the bus, I could get mugged for my sneakers. I could get this and as my friend Dana Lausch says, is it's the great equalizer, right? The gun is the great equalizer, and you know, we saw months and months of lawlessness where people's businesses that they'd built up over years and years and years were just being destroyed. And, you know, you got a guy that went out there and, you know, you can debate on whether or not he should have been there or should not have been there. I mean, that's a separate issue. But what was clear, which was really, I mean, even though, you know, you can talk about it, but the criminal records of the people that were involved on the other side.
Yeah, but the mainstream media wanted to make sure that nobody knew that he shot a child rapist, right? That's who this person was, an absolute piece of garbage who, you know, who died the way he lived, trying to touch underage children. That's what he was doing.
Yeah, look, I mean, look, let's just even if we take away all those things, right? Because in a court of law, you know, they weren't allowing that in as ever, you know, as a background, which, you know, to a degree, I'm like, hang on a minute, you know, if someone's really violent, or if someone's violent towards their spouse, or if someone's just got out of, you know, a mental asylum that day, then maybe that is important to know. But on the merits of the case, he was going for his gun. I mean, you know, there's all these like things that people did not know. Like, oh, we brought the gun across, you know. It's like, they're so wrong about so many things. But the arrogance of making statements as if they were true when they're provably false. It's absolutely clear that all they're doing is getting their news from one source, right? They're getting the news from one source. They're getting the sound bites. And they're not really delving into the truth of the matter. I'm very good friends, like Tim Clemente, who's a former FBI agent. His brother, Jim Clemente, caught the Unabomber. I'm very good friends with them. And, you know, they've really made me see different sides to cases. I mean, you should anyway, as a decent human being, right? You should, like, never rush to judgment. You should always listen and take the facts into consideration. These people just didn't. They rushed to judgment because they wanted to bury him because of the narrative, and that's like a totalitarian regime. I mean, this is really serious. This is what happens in communist countries, not America.
Yeah, it shouldn't be, at least. And you have the president, you have all these congressmen and women, you have all these prominent members of the media who have all labeled this person a white supremacist, a domestic terrorist, whatever it may be. Like, that is evil. And, you know, Kyle Rittenhouse's life will never be the same. Obviously, we're all grateful that the verdict was the correct one because the evidence was overwhelming. If it hadn't been on video, think of where we might be. This was the most obvious case of self-defense anyone's ever had, yet they still try to lie their way through the entire thing.
Well, this is the problem, right? This is one of the major problems that, you know, they keep throwing shit at people, right? Doesn't matter whether it's true. Doesn't matter whether a certain politician has been involved in certain... And, you know, the funny thing is the ones that are guilty of stuff, they just go, oh, blah, 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 blah. You know, we don't care about someone sleeping with a Chinese spy. Oh, that doesn't matter. But let's throw all this shit at other people, which is demonstrably untrue, and tarnishing their reputation. And then they just keep saying it. And then when it's the danger of this is when we don't have a situation like, as you say, like it's not caught on camera, right? It's not demonstrably like easily proven to be false, right? When someone does go to jail, that is innocent. I mean, it's abhorrent, and I think it's very dangerous. I mean, do you remember that guy that was like, he was chasing after the jurors, right, in the car and everything, and he was like, "Oh,
MSNBC.
no, I wasn't chasing after." I'm like, you don't do these. Like, what it is normal people around the country are going, what the fuck is going on? Like, can you just be normal? And can you just ask a normal question and treat people normally? I think that right now, America is, anyone who watches the news is just going, what's with the hypocrisy, right? The hypocrisy is so staggering. And again, you know, I hear people all the time talking about how they feel powerless and how they don't have a voice. And I'm like, you know what? Okay, you know, I have to do this, right? It's on my conscience that I have to say something, and I'm so sick because you know, look, I moved to Texas, right? And everyone's like, "Hey, don't California my Texas." Right? I'm like, hey, listen, you need people like me here, you know, because we know the shithole that we've just come out of, and we're determined for it not to go that way, right? Like those people that are just normal, and look, it's not like a massive right wing thing. These people just centrists who are just like, hey, you guys are insane what you're doing. You know, you know, you let people out on zero bail. And they go, yeah, I mean, like, what is going on? I mean, like,
we're not going to arrest you unless you steal something that's worth over $900. Then we might think about arresting you and stopping you. What a crazy thing that all of a sudden all the businesses start to leave.
Yeah, and by the way, and then we'll arrest you, and then we'll let you out for free. You can just go straight out again. It's like this is insanity, and I really do believe. And it's really worrying. It's concerning for the mental well-being of people that the COVID lockdowns, all that kind of stuff that was, the masks, the this, the that, and then this, it's just a constant pile-on, right? It's a pile-on. It's like pressing people down. And as I said, I did a show the other day. I said, it's the one and no one snapped and no one's gone, hey, you know what? I'm done with this. You know, you can't do this. And I'm seeing it right now because it just, you know, Boris Johnson over in the UK just said, hey, listen, like we're not locking down, but really we are locking down. And it's pushing people over the edge, and it's cruel. It's really cruel. And they can go and have a party, right, the day before. You know, or 2 days ago, they have a big party at number 10, and that's okay. And the woman laughs about it when she's questioned. Like, we're really getting to this kind of like, you know, we're serfs and they're the overlords. And the whole point is that they should fear their population, right? There should be small government. They should fear us because they work for us. And the only reason why we still have some semblance of that in this country is the Second Amendment. That's it.
The Second Amendment is there to protect the First Amendment. You know what I mean? Like that, it is very important, and is the reason that right here, as bad as it is in America, and it's stupid and it's bad and it shouldn't be this way. When you look at places like what's happening in Germany, what's happening in Australia, in New Zealand, in the UK now, there's a reason that it's not to that level here, and it is because of the Second Amendment. And I think that all of this. The fact that, 2 weeks to slow the spread, we're almost 2 years removed from that at this point. What you talked about, kind of coming at people from all angles, I think it's all designed to keep a population divided, to keep people in their homes, and to keep people reliant upon whether it be the government or the elites in some way. So you're sitting at home, you have to rely on the elites to provide you your entertainment, and you have to rely on your government to provide you everything else. That's I think where everybody wants to push us.
Yeah, well, we all know that if they divide us, I mean, one of the things that I really loved, so we did Black Hawk Down in 2000. Yeah, I wished. We did it in 2000. 2001, it was released. And I remember coming to America after September the 11th, and I just saw flags everywhere. Flags. And I just thought it was the most beautiful thing, because in, you know, years ago in the UK, if you flew the Union flag, it was considered to be racist, which is ridiculous, right? Because if you're united in the idea of what it is to be an American, right, then all those things don't matter. But what they've managed to do is they didn't manage to do initially. They kept throwing it. They were like, okay, we're going to separate you guys on this, and we're going to separate you guys on that. And none of it really worked, right? None of it really worked to the extent that they wanted to until COVID, right? And COVID was the thing that really has managed to separate people, right? Like, you're vaxxed, you're unvaxxed, you wear a mask, you don't wear, and it's such a visible thing, right? Because if you walk down the street, I mean, I went back to LA a few months ago, and I was walking down the street. I'm like, I am not wearing a mask. I'm not doing it. You know, there's no way. And this person was walking opposite me walking down the street, and they literally, it was the funniest thing. They ran across the street to avoid me, like ran across the street, and they were wearing the mask. I'm like, you are just absurd. It's happened now, right? They've managed to divide people, but here's the thing. The people that are standing, and there's a lot of people that have been vaccinated that don't agree with mandated vaccinations. There's a lot of people that aren't vaccinated. But those are the people that are like, hey, listen, freedom matters, right? It's a matter of principle, right? And if they would, the stupid thing is they always overplay their hand. If they would have just let it go, and if they would have said, hey, listen, vaccinate yourself if you want, blah, 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 then a lot more people would have done it. But the thing I love about America, and I always say this, and we say this to all these Americans out there, in America, you can still get eaten by a wild animal, right? You can. You can still get eaten by a wild animal. You can't do that in Europe anymore. They've got soft. So there's still an American frontiersman spirit, right? Which is like, you know what, we can do that. We'll if ever you've driven across America, you're like, how the hell did they get over those mountains?
Yeah.
How did they do? I mean, it's just unbelievable. And there's something in the American spirit, right, that talks to that. That's like, you're not going to tell me what to do. You're not going to tell me I can't do that, right? And that's what resonated with me as a kid, right? I'm like, you're not going to tell me that I'm in my class, because you know what? In America, it doesn't matter what class you are. It doesn't matter what race you are. It doesn't matter. If you work hard, you'll get there. And real Americans understand that. And that's why they don't buy into this victim bullshit, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so anyway, there's something inside that says, if you tell me to do it, I'm not going to do it. And so you've got, I don't know how many, 70 odd million people or more that haven't taken the vaccine, and in large part because they're like, you're not going to tell me what to do. An American, the government doesn't dictate to me what I do. I love it, to be honest. I love that spirit in America, where it's like, I'll be me, okay? You know what I'm saying?
And I
love it.
And I think that the crazy part and the scary part when it comes to all this is, so many of the people that have gotten vaccinated, obviously there is a certain percentage of people that are going to run across the side of the road because they are very much scared of their everyday lives right now. There's that portion, but there's also a large portion of people. They took this vaccine not because they're afraid of COVID, but because they want to go to a restaurant, because they want to go to a gym, because they want to get on a plane, because they want to do all these other things. That to me is the very scary part about the reasons for people taking it. And you're 100% right that there would be no pushback from anyone if people just went and did what they wanted and said, hey, I got it, but if you get your vax, that's not going to affect how mine acts, because that's normal, that's natural, that's what it's been for decades and decades and decades. But there is something very specific about what they're trying to do with this one, and it seems to be never ending, because it is never ending.
Of course. I mean, anyone that has seen the way that totalitarian regimes work, it's always this kind of way. And I'm always reluctant, because I hate the way that people say Nazi, right? Because they throw that around. It's like racism, right? They've used racism so much now, it doesn't mean anything. The word is, it's overused. It used to be, that was the worst thing you could ever, well, it still is if it's true, right? It still is the worst thing you can call someone if it is true, right? But now, if you're racist if you disagree with someone, right? Yeah. So it's the same thing with Nazi, right? Like Nazis, was used, you're a fascist Nazi. It's used to shut people up, right? Like that's a narrative. But I'll tell you this, if there's definite mirrors in history with what happened under that regime to what's happening now, right? I remember, I think Jordan Peterson said something about, most people think that they would fight against the brown shirts, but really they wouldn't, they would comply. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing people out there going, yeah, they shouldn't get healthcare, if they're unvaccinated. No, they shouldn't. And I mean, you've seen Australia, right? They're literally in concentration camps. And you're going, Hello.
Hello?
You know,
Oh, yeah.
but I think that, yeah, see, that's acting right there.
Yeah.
Oh, lost you. I was amusing myself doing. No, but again, it's the American spirit, man. It's the American spirit, and people know it around the world. That's why people want Americans to be the heroes in movies, right? And it's not just because of Hollywood, right? It's because that people recognize that America is an exceptional place. It's an amazing idea. And it's been the greatest country the world has ever seen on so many different levels. And does it have its issues? Yeah, but listen, it corrects them pretty darn quickly. And although we're in a difficult time right now, I really have a belief in the American people. I don't have a belief in the American government. I think they're self-serving. I think there should be term limits. You can get me on, going down. I'm a small government guy, but the American patriot, the real American patriot that loves this country and loves all Americans, right, and really values freedom and freedom for other people around the world, they're never going to give this country up without a fight. And you haven't even seen people start getting going yet.
Hell yeah. Yeah, absolutely, dude. And I love that, especially from someone who wasn't even born American. I love hearing that stuff. And sometimes I feel like people that weren't born here, that do come here, have a much better appreciation for everything that America does stand for and has stood for so long, because they see the difference, and that they look back at where they came from and they realize what's going on there. And so that's why I appreciate hearing that stuff from you so much. And you went from being an American, well, I don't know if you officially had your citizenship when you were in California, but now you've made the move to Texas. So I got to hear about the difference between Commie, California, which I also left about 5 months ago now, 4 months ago. I was in the Navy and I was stationed in San Diego for the past 4.5 years. I would have never lived there of my own accord. But now I'm in the free state of Florida. So I think I'm feeling the same thing that you're kind of feeling, that escape from California.
Yeah, and it's funny because you talk about San Diego, and San Diego is probably one of the most conservative areas in California. I mean, I love it down there. My wife actually danced down there with the city of San Diego Ballet. So, I used to go down there, because Coronado, obviously, and the teams. I've done a couple of visits down there.
Yeah,
and
I was stationed. I was stationed on North Island right there. So
right on. It's a beautiful area, man. It's
yeah.
really beautiful. But I was duking it out, because you got to remember, I was this little boy with a dream in the UK that I could one day come to America. I didn't really understand why I loved America so much, but I knew I loved movies, and I knew that the pinnacle of movie making is Hollywood. And, I went there and made some really great friends. I obviously, my opinions got a little bit more and more stronger as you get older, as you do, and mainly because people don't leave you alone. You're not left alone to be you, right? You're not like it's forced on you all the time. And if you don't comply to a particular way of thinking, then, I mean, this can be on anything, right? Then you're ostracized, then you're kind of pushed out. And I just got fed up with that, because I'm a real, like, live and let live person. Like, you can go and do whatever you want. Just don't force me to have to agree with what you say is true, because there is real truth. There's objective truth, which I consider to be, we should all be pursuing. Despite
none of the my truth bullshit, right?
My truth is the biggest crock of shit. And if anyone says to me my truth, I go, fuck your truth. Your truth is, there is the truth. There's not my truth or it's a house of sticks, right? That just collapses on its own weight, right? Because that's my truth. I go, fuck off, right? I hate to say it, because it's just ridiculous. The ridiculous people, but I just, it got to the point where, you know, the cops aren't able to do their job. You know, like you said, that you could raid a CVS pharmacy and walk out with, you know, up to $900 worth of stuff, and they don't do anything. My friend who's a cop, you know, couldn't move, you know, homeless people out of the kiddie park, you know, where my kids played. And I have a lot of sympathy for the homeless and underprivileged, but you know, a lot of these people are on drugs, and you don't want them around your kids, right? You can't have them around your kids. And there's just no, in the same way, there's no help for them, but there's no law. And it was increasingly getting more lawless. I was paying, you know, well, you know what the gas prices are. You nearly have a heart attack when you cross over into Arizona or whatever, into New Mexico or any of those states. You're like, what? And I found myself, you know, constantly on edge because, you know, it's a everything's rules, right? Rules for this, rules for that. You know, you have to have a permit to have a fire in your backyard, you know. Stuff like that. It was just grating on me, and you know, I looked around. I'm like, what am I paying for? You know, I'm not enjoying it here. The people are openly aggressive. I have a bunch of kids, right, and people just make comments. You know, when I'm out with my kids, and I'm like, I'm done. I don't need this. I'm going to go to somewhere which I believe is the absolute heart. It was Florida or Texas. And I just, you know, Texas just tipped the balance for me. I mean, I always, when I came here, I heard all these things about, you know, Texans being racist and, you know, backward and all this kind of stuff in the South. And I come down and I'm like, these people are awesome. And by the way, it's more diverse here than LA. It's more diverse here. And people will talk to you about all different things. And you can carry a gun, by the way. And, you know, so there was so many different reasons why I wanted to come here. And I have not looked back. Apart from, they drive like absolute maniacs. It's like Death Race 2000 here, right? They are insane. Everyone drives like, so that's why I bought this F-150, right? Because I'm like, I can't be driving a small truck in Texas. I just can't do it.
You're gonna get run over.
Yeah.
It is like California. Like, there's crazy traffic in California because some places there's just a lot of people. But I think, from my experiences, people in California are a little more laid back, I guess, as far as like when they're driving. Whereas a lot of other places, and I don't like that. I'm probably one of those fucking assholes who like is gonna do everything they can to get to my place as quick as I possibly can. But yeah, I like Texas. I was thinking about moving down there. What we were gonna do with Geeks and Gamers and the future of what we're doing here on YouTube, we're actually gonna start a studio in Orlando soon. So Florida kind of just made the most sense. But either way, I'm happy to be out of there. And one of the few states, it seems like Texas, Florida, and Tennessee at this point is where everyone is fleeing. And they're fleeing from, you know, from tyrannical local governments. And I don't even think it's excessive to say that at this point.
No, it's not. I mean, it's insane over there, like what they do. So my kids used to go to this small school up there. All my friends still have their kids going to that school. And they practice basketball. They don't have their own gym, so they have to go. They share a gym, so they go to another gym. It's a private school. They go to another gym, and that gym was shut down for this one particular week. I think it's like 3 weeks ago, and so they went to a local park to practice in the park. And as one of my friends pulls up onto the parking lot, they see a gang of guys around a car, and she was like, oh, this doesn't feel good. Next thing you know, pop, 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 pop. There's a guy using her car as cover, shooting at the other guys. Drop one guy.
What?
Yeah, no joke. And it was literally minutes before all the kids came out of the practice. And my friend's got, you know, I've got some pictures of my friend's car that's got a bullet hole in it. This is sunny Pasadena, dude. No, it's not in any of the newspapers. There's basically a shooting, you know, in, I think it was like 3 or 4 days in a row in leafy Pasadena. And I'm like, you know, I couldn't let my kids go and ride their bikes up and down the street, you know, and that's what I wanted. I wanted a good old, you know, a good old fashioned Americana area to raise my kids in, you know.
Yeah, it's not too much to ask for a normal life, for you not to be worried about your kids being outside, you know, on the sidewalk, like wherever, right by the house in your neighborhood. That shouldn't be too much for anyone to ask. And the fact that that's going on in Pasadena, which if you guys aren't familiar with the LA area, Pasadena is, I mean, 30, 45 minutes outside of like LA. And I would say 15 years ago, you never would have thought of anything like that going down. But that's how bad it's gotten in California. It's sad, but you know, people like yourself are getting out of there. Normal people are getting out of there, and that is a very good thing. I know a lot of people who go ahead.
So no, and a lot of people like I said, don't California, my Texas, but the people are coming here because they want it to remain the way it is. Right. So, and actually the only changes that are going on here is actually through the school system as opposed to immigration from other states. So it's really important for, if there are any Texans and any like Floridians there, I mean, apart from, I guess, some people that are coming down from New York, but the majority of people are coming here fiercely protective over what they have in this state. And they will fight harder than a lot of Texans will to keep it the way it is, because they've lived. You know, I mean, California was a red state not long ago. You know, it was the reddest of red. You know, I mean, it was an amazing place, and then it's completely flipped. And you know, I don't think that there'll be any kind of a change there until it completely implodes and collapses. And even then, I don't even know if it will. You know, I don't know if they really see what's going on there.
Yeah, I think there's people that are just stuck in that bubble, unfortunately. We do have a couple super chats and a couple, you know, comments and questions for Matthew here. One's D-Day Cobra, $20, showing some love. Thank you, Jeremy. Jeremy, D-Day Cobra, is the CEO and founder of Geeks and Gamers. So he's the one that started the entire YouTube thing for us, which started just talking about video games and evolved into talking about entertainment, you know, the infiltration of identity politics and pushing these narratives in all forms of entertainment. So shout out, Jeremy. Appreciate that. We also have Anakmaman for $10. Rambo is the best film in the franchise. Marsden's character Schoolboy is a factor in that. Great performance, great character, and great gun. Barrett M82CQ. Are you still there, Matthew? I heard him.
Yeah, I'm still here. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
There we go.
Come on. Hey, there you go. Yeah,
right.
Thank you very much. Rambo, that gun was actually made for me for the character. It was the first short barrel Barrett 50 cal that they'd done. They hadn't done one of that barrel length until we did that film. So, yeah, very proud to be associated with that movie.
Yeah, I imagine. And, you know, getting to work, you talked about how Rocky was an inspiration for you and like what you wanted to do, become an actor. To be able to then work with Sylvester Stallone later on in that movie, that had to feel pretty rewarding.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, good. Yeah, so it was a funny thing, right? So I get a call from my representatives and they were like almost like scoffing. This is how out of touch Hollywood is. They're like, they're doing a new Rambo. They want you to go in and meet on it. I'm like, they're doing a new Rambo? You shitting me? And they were like, you'd want to do it? I went, what are you talking about? Yes, of course. And so so I go in and I actually read for Lewis, my buddy Graham McTavish's role. And it's playing an SAS guy because actually Schoolboy was a Navy SEAL in the original screenplay. And just so you know, and there's a few nods to it, but in the original script, Schoolboy took over the franchise. It was kind of like the same as what happened with Creed. So, you know, Creed took over the franchise, really Rocky. So I can tell you about that in a minute. But so anyway, I go in and I read for it, and I get a phone call, and they're like, "Hey, listen, Stallone loved your read. But he wants you to play Schoolboy." I'm like, "Holy shit, are you kidding?" And they said, "No, but he wants you to play British and yada yada. He's going to give you a call in like 20 minutes. Is that okay?" I was like, "No, it's not." "Yes, it's okay. Of course, it's okay." Fuck's sake. So anyway, he calls me and he invites me around to his office the next day, just to hang out. So I go around, and it's this like really surreal moment where I meet someone who I idolized growing up, right? I mean, most of us did, right?
Yeah.
And I go in, and he shakes. It's always funny when these like icons like introduce themselves. Like you don't know who they are.
He's like,
Yeah,
I'm Sylvester Stallone. You're like, no fucking shit. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Michael Caine did it the first time. He goes, "Hello, I'm Michael." I'm like, no shit.
Yeah.
So I did his line. I was a little bit like wigged out. And so we go into his office, and the dude is super smart, right? He knows, he knows bows, he knows guns, and we were talking about all these different aspects. We were talking about like the penetrating power of an arrow and a compound bow and this and that. And at that point he was looking at using an Accuracy International sniper rifle for the role, and we were talking about it. And I actually said to him, "Hey, why don't you make Schoolboy SBS? Because there's a rivalry between the SAS and the SBS. Instead of having two SAS guys, and also the Royal Marine Commandos were the original Green Berets, right?" So, and next, you see how smart it is. Boom! It was in the script, like immediately. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm talking to him like kind of out of body experience. And he walks over to the DVD player. He's huge, like just jacked, and walks over and puts his DVD in and presses play. And it's the trailer for Rocky Balboa.
Oh.
And I'm like, what the hell is going on in my life right now? Like, I don't understand what's going on in my life right now. I don't understand. And then it was like, ba, 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 ba. And I'm like, I'm watching Rocky with Rocky. And he finished it, and I'm like, I knew immediately that movie was going to be great. And I love that film. I think it's an underrated movie, And I looked over at him, and I went, and he went back, and I'm like, all right, that's it, right? Okay, we're in business. And then that was
That's
it. We're
awesome,
off to the jungles in Thailand. Yeah.
That is awesome. And if anybody hasn't seen that one, you should. It is. I was rewatching a little bit of like the action sequences, and my God, is it brutal? And that 50 cal does what a 50 cal is supposed to do in that movie. And that kind of actually reminds me of something we have heard a lot about over the past month and a half or so. There's been a lot of people talking about weapons and guns on the set of Hollywood productions, on the set of movies, safety associated with them, everything like that. I want to hear your thoughts about like kind of what your experiences was, because you have interacted with a lot of weapons in a lot of your movies. What did you do as an actor with the firearm in terms of safety?
That's a great question, actually, because, I was taught by the best, right? I was taught by the US Army Rangers, right? So when we did, it's a funny little story, actually, as well, about doing Black Hawk Down. This links into what we're talking about. So when I knew I was doing that movie, I remember someone saying that when the guys at Fort Bragg watched Heat, they saw Val Kilmer do a magazine change, right? And they all went, oh, because that magazine change is like crisp, right, in Heat. So I remember him saying that. So when we were training at Benning, everyone else had gone, and I stayed at the range, right? And I was just practicing, doing a magazine change, which for someone who'd never been around firearms at all was it's kind of confusing initially, And so I rehearsed it, got it down, got it absolutely down. Go to Morocco, and they give me a squad automatic weapon, the saw, and 2.9mm, and I was like, oh shit, yeah. But and all the guys were like, oh dude, you've got a saw, that's awesome, And I'm like, yeah, but I practiced like this cool changing of a magazine so I'd look badass on film. So anyway, when we were doing that though, if we flagged someone, they would literally hit us. The Rangers would hit us. And you learn really fast not to point a gun at the back of somebody else when you've got an Army Ranger clocking you around the back of the head, right? So I took it really seriously, and that's where I started my interest in firearms and working with them outside, right? So I've been fortunate to train with former Delta guys, former CAG guys, former SEAL Team 6 guys, and a bunch of different people. So I always, in every movie that I've done, I always have a gun owner's approach to safety, right? Which is, you don't point it at anything that you're not willing to destroy. You always treat it like it's loaded. I never believe anyone. In fact, I can't remember what the film was now, but the armor came over and they, showed me. They were like, okay, this gun's clear, blah, blah, blah. They opened, I think it was they opened the barrel, had a look. There was nothing. They shine a light down the end of the barrel normally to show you there's nothing in the barrel. And it was all clear. And then they were like, okay, we're going to shoot the scene. And I walk over and there's someone right opposite me. And I walk over and I open the gun, show the other person the gun. The armor was like, what are you doing? I said, I just want to make sure that the person that is over there, knows that this is a cleared gun. And he said, well, I showed you. I said, yeah, but you didn't show her, did you? So, you have to, and again, I'm familiar with weapons, right? So it's not like I'm someone who's green. But I know this is that normally you will have, and I've been on set, with Thai Special Forces, with Army Rangers, with Navy SEALs, all of them. And the discipline is always the same. You get your weapon, it's given to you by the armorer. The armorer clears the weapon in front of you, make sure everything is clear. They'll show you the magazine. Normally they'll give you an empty magazine if you're going to have one in, loaded in, until it's swapped out, and then you'll be given blanks. But it's always checked and checked and checked and checked again. And then I will check it as well and, do the normal safety as if it was a real gun. And I've always done that. It's more difficult, obviously, when you have a magazine, because you have to, at some point, you're not going to check every shell that's in there, every case, any bullet casing that's in there, every shell that's in a shotgun. You're going to, because you'll be there all day, right? You have to.
Right. Yeah. You can't unload 30. You can't unload 30 rounds of 5.56 and then reload them in a timely fashion on set like that.
Yeah, it's unrealistic. But these guys are anal at keep staying on top of holding the magazines. They normally have them wrapped with a band like green. A green band, and I've certainly never been in a situation where they've had live rounds on set ever. And these guys they're the most anal. I mean, they're all normally all gun guys, and they're all really super anal about the handling of the weapon. And they will, I mean, I've seen it happen. You think you're like a cowboy in the bad sense, and they will slap you down real quick. And or they'll take the weapon off you and tell them that you can't use it.
Yeah, but there you go.
If
you're
responsible.
Yeah, that's good to hear, because there's just been so many different tales from different people about what they do. And I think obviously, when something goes as bad as it has recently, it's because there was probably a couple things along the process that didn't work. So I appreciate you getting that out there for us. Real quick, we did have
I think now.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, can I just say this? I think now that what you're going to see is there will be zero live weapons, because when I say live weapons, let me take that back. There should never be live weapons on set. Real weapons on set, because normally it'll be a real weapon that is loaded with blanks for the most part. You can have what they call rubbers. They actually got me a rubber for the Barrett it's meant to be so that it's lighter, or that you'll have it on you you know, if you got a sidearm and you're carrying an M4 or whatever, you'll like the sidearm might be a rubber because you can't tell the difference. If it's a really, really heavy weapon, they might give you a rubber. With mine, I had it maybe 2 scenes. I'm like, this is just as heavy as the real thing, so why don't I just have the real thing? So I pretty much lugged the real thing around. But I think there'll be a transfer because the technology is so good now that they'll just have, you know, gas powered, you know, guns specifically, you know, that look the real thing for movies, because there's no need for it now. You don't need it anymore.
Yeah, and I think it's, you know, it's crazy because we have gone 30 years without any incidents. You know what I mean? And it sounds like a lot of things went bad for this to occur, for this to happen. So it seems like if you actually are following all the rules and restrictions, there shouldn't be any problems. But yeah, I think that it's so blown up that there is going to be a lot of people that just go ahead and do that and just stop using it in general. Yeah, thank you for your inside knowledge on that. We have Ian Soforth for 15 pounds. I've told that's proper money. Someone told me pounds are proper money. Says, what a legend. Thank you so much, Ian. We're glad that Matthew's here. Brenton Palmer for $8.99 New Zealand. 95% of Hollywood activists should take what Matthew is saying on board. We don't pay attention to actors for their politics. Thank you very much, Brenton. Kristen Nova is here, says Florida and Texas heart. Yes, Florida and Texas, vastly superior to California. And we do have over on Odyssey, Elemental Red says, nice interview. I enjoy when Matthew guests on the news and why it matters. Black Hawk Down is one of my favorite war movies. Saw it with my dad when it came out. There you go. And yeah, you are, I don't know how often you're on the news and why it matters, but I've heard a lot of people say really positive stuff about when you are on there.
Oh, great. I mean, yeah, I mean, they asked me to go on, and they actually, I think they wanted me to go on today. They did. They wanted me to go on today. I couldn't make it. I love Sarah. She's a really wonderful person. And, you know, like I said, I mean, I'd rather just fly under the radar and get on with my own life and, you know, not say anything. But I do feel right now that there is, you know, it's kind of incumbent on anyone that has any kind of platform, however, you know, small or whatever, especially if you know Hollywood and you kind of, you're fed up of what they're saying, and it can be really, really demoralizing for people who, you know, just want to sit down sometimes and escape the world and put on a movie, and then they see like these idiots spout all this garbage. That you know, they're clear. Honestly, they clearly are in contempt of the people that watch their stuff. So it's going to come full circle. But, you know, you're doing a studio. There's going to be more studios. That's my aim to do here in Texas. I want to build a studio and do old school action movies, you know, like just, it's not even, you know, people just don't want to be lectured to. You know, they just want to go and have a good time. You know, they want to, I mean, look, we grew up with great movies, you know, these, you know, action movies where there wasn't some social agenda in it, you know, and we need to get back to that. I mean, it is the entertainment industry, not the propaganda arm of the government, and that's what it feels like right now.
Hell yeah, absolutely. You're 1000% in line with exactly what normal people and audiences are asking for. I love what Daily Wire is doing right now, where they are starting to create these movies that have no agenda. What people don't want is just another echo chamber on the other side. They don't want people to just preach, you know, right-wing conservative politics to them. They don't want every main character, you know, wearing a MAGA hat or something like that in all these Daily Wire movies. They just want to be entertained and not preached to. So yeah, it's spot on. And speaking of not being preached to and just straight entertainment, you have a new movie that actually just came out recently.
Yeah, I did a film with Bruce Willis. So I guess I've only got one of the what would you call them? Would you call them the trio, like Bruce, Arnie, and Sly? So I've got to try and get with Arnie. But yeah, no, I always wanted to work with Bruce, and it was nice to work with him on this. So I'm very glad to get the opportunity to work with him, and he was a lovely guy. So yeah. that just came out on Friday, and obviously I've got the TV show coming out in I believe February the 5th as well. So that's going to be great. Busy.
Absolutely, yeah. So check out Deathlock. That's available. I know it's on Amazon Prime, a lot of other places you can buy it or rent it, and it is in theaters as well. So you guys can go check that out. And then I'm excited for Reacher as a fan of the books. So that'll be exciting. The trailer for that just came out. Looks more like in line with the character than we saw from Tom Cruise, which is always a good thing. And definitely make sure you support Matthew and all the stuff that he does, because obviously we've seen, like, as the chat's been going by, everybody said, I'm going to go watch all of Matthew's movies now, just because of how much you're preaching to the choir here, Matthew. You're saying all the things that these guys are saying as well about the industry, and they love it.
Well, I have to say I'm really appreciative of any support that I get. Again, I want you guys and your audience to understand that normally I wouldn't be doing this. Like, I just want to be on the down low. I just want to get on with my life, but I really do feel like that someone has to say something against these people, because they're spreading a lot of falsehoods, and that's not right. And when it has a bigger effect, and it has a ripple effect across the country, because no one is stopping that flow, that flood of negative and bad information, then it's problematic, So somebody has to do it. And I was sitting there, I'm like, no, I mean, Nick Searcy and Gina, they're all speaking up. Dean Kane is, but there's not that many, and you have, especially certainly with the Carl Rittenhouse case. I mean, that was the thing for me. I'm like, all right, now, all right, now I take my jacket off and I'm stepping in, because it was just, they were just so wrong. Listen, can I just say this? This isn't opinion, right? It's really important. It isn't opinion. In that case, is factual. It was things that were presented in the actual trial, right? And if we just abandon facts, right? If we just abandon rational, logical thought, we're in deep shit, because that's the Wild West right there. Then we start moving into, uncharted territory for this country, and we can't be having that, right? We can't be doing that. We have to stand up and defend the truth. It's really important. I can't look my kids in the eye. I always say I can't look my kids in the eye as they grow up, knowing that I'm in this industry, and they'll say to me, like, Dad, why didn't you do something? Like, you could have said something. And then I'm not much of a father, am I? If I don't do that. So
there you go. Yeah, man, we appreciate the hell out of it for sure. Real quick, Biggles Metz for 5 says, my truth, Ryan is the greatest YouTuber. Thank you, Biggles. And then for 50 over on Odyssey is the way to go from SPBS. FNT on Odyssey next. Yeah, Friday Night Tights, which is a little parody of Friday Night Lights, which we do every Friday over on Nerdrotics channel. We're going to see if we can get on Odyssey soon. Can't promise this week, but we're going to make it happen soon. One quick question before we end the stream, Matthew. I know you're a whiskey guy. We got to get a good recommendation for you for a whiskey to try.
Okay, well, mine's going to be probably a little bit controversial.
Oh, right? Okay.
Yeah, because you either love this whiskey or you hate this whiskey.
Okay.
And that is Lefroy.
Lefroy. Okay. Now, about how much does that run a bottle for Lefroy for 750 milliliters?
It's not that expensive. I mean, I think it's like you can get it for like $40. I know that like Trader Joe's used to have it in there for like $40. So it's not that expensive. But if you like very heavily peaty smoky, if you are like a Lagavulin drinker, it's like the harsher. I have very, like, you're asking. I don't have a refined palate, right? Like I'm the stronger it is, the smokiest it is. But I would say this. Yeah. I would also now I haven't drunk these two whiskeys yet because I'm waiting for a little bit of history. Norman Houghton, the guy who plays Eric Banner plays in Black Hawk Down, is obviously a real person. He has a whiskey company called Houghton Young, and whiskey and cigars, and he sent me a bottle of Hoot and Young whiskey in the first batch, and some cigars, and I'm waiting to share them with him. And Three Rangers is the other bottle I got from Dale Sizemore, the guy who I played in Black Hawk Down, and I'm waiting to drink that with him. So I can't comment on either of them, but they're both cool as hell. So maybe someone else can drink them and then tell me, because I can't break that seal until I have it with the boys themselves.
There you go. That's a great story. That's awesome. I do not have a refined palate either. This week I had my first taste ever of Johnny Walker Blue, and I also drank Jack Daniels straight from the bottle. So it just kind of depends on the day for me. But Lucamus Prime for 450. Great stream, guys. Actually watching Matthew and Rambo 2008 right now. Hell yeah, Lucamus. Thank you. And then Mr. Tex with the $2 super sticker. Thank you very much, guys. And that's going to do it for us. Do you have anything left to plug, Matthew, before we end the stream?
No, I just want to thank you for having me on your show, and thank everyone that's tuning in, and everyone that giving the support. I'm really, really appreciative of.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it, guys. Chat, thank you for being here. This was an awesome show, an awesome stream. Great to meet Matthew Marsden. Support all of his stuff, and we will talk to you later. Bye.